As producer Tyler just said, it's time to talk about some people punching each other in the face right here on the Stokastic MMA Strategy Show. Get you ready here for UFC Vegas number 62 coming up here on Saturday afternoon. Prelims start at 4 o'clock Eastern time. Main card 7 p.m. Eastern time. And hey, Pete, I will be here on Saturday.
Oh boy, we are in for a treat, huh?
Yeah, I'm taking an early flight to Pittsburgh on Saturday morning, and I will be in my hotel. Time to do the live for lock on Saturday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Of course, we appreciate everyone tuning in here for the strategy show. Of course, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you've not done that. Of course, you know we got you covered all day long for all your DFS and betting coverage. Of course, coming up after us will be the NHL strategy show. But Pete, we're here to break this one down for you. I will tell you, there's one fight on this card. I don't feel great about saying that you got to roster it, but you got to roster it. Do you know what that one fight is?
It's got to be the Todorovic Jordan Wright fight, if I had to guess.
Yes, no question.
Complete volatility. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like that's one of those fights that when you go over to Fantasy Cruncher, you might just have to say, "Give me one or the other."
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. I mean, not to kind of skip ahead too much, but I'm favoring Todorovic a lot in the matchup, even though I don't trust him as crazy as that is. I'm not a Jordan Wright guy. So excited to hear what you have to say with some of this card, some of these matchups. All in all, it's a blah card. Some exciting matchups, but you know, the headliner's a head scratcher for me.
I mean, look, I think there's a couple of fights that do intrigue me. I am intrigued to see what Cub Swanson looks like at 135 pounds. The first time he fights at 135 pounds since 2005. I had to go back in that Tapology and start to kind of figure out if he had ever fought at 135 pounds. I do think we got a really good flyweight matchup in Askar Askarov and Brandon Royval, but we're going to break this one down for you. As Pete mentioned, we got headliner, which Alexa Grasso, she's calling this like a semifinal type matchup in terms of potentially getting a title shot there in the 125-pound division as she takes on Viviana Araujo. 9,000 for Alexa Grasso and DK for Araujo. 7,200. This fight was supposed to take place back in August. However, Alexa Grasso did withdraw from that. Grasso, she's won 3 in a row, coming off that submission win back in March against JoJo Wood. Of course, when I think of Alexa Grasso, I do think of a volume puncher, but not a puncher that's going to go out there and just, you know, knock you out. And of course, 6 of her last 8 fights, she has gone the distance in the UFC. When you look over to the other side, Viviana Araujo, 3-1 in her last 4, coming off a decision win in May against Andrea Lee. She has now gone the distance in 6 straight fights in the UFC after winning her UFC debut via stoppage. She does have a 2-inch reach advantage. And, you know, Pete, when I was looking over the fight stats on this one, there was one stat that stuck out to me that made me wonder, could Viviana Araujo go to takedown city here? She averages 2.23 takedowns landed per 15 minutes of fighting in the UFC.
Yeah, so all in all, I'm excited about the matchup. And I think for DFS, because it's 5 rounds, I'm going to get to both sides. We did see Mackenzie Dern kind of drop the ball the last time that we were around. And, you know, you had an underdog cashing in a 5-round main event. So I do think that Viviane Araujo will be popular, and rightfully so. It's women's MMA, which is volatile at times, but underdogs tend to pull out victories more often than not. As far as the matchup, I do think that Viviane Araujo has a strength advantage over Alexa Grasso. I do have to say that. And I think the takedowns could come, but every time that you are taking your opponent down or attempting to, you are taxing your body from a cardiovascular standpoint. And I actually think that Araujo is not built for 5 rounds as well as Alexa Grasso is. And there have been times where I'm watching Viviana Araujo fight and I'm like, you know, taking a foot off the gas pedal a little bit, looking like she has somewhat of a questionable gas tank. And Alexa Grasso on the other end seems like the steadier fighter, the more consistent fighter, the fighter who's going to be there from minute 1 to minute 25. And I do think that the volume and her skill set where she can negate some of Araujo's attempts could actually tax Viviana. So I'm going to be favoring Alexa Grasso, but as far as like lineup construction, like, you know, you could do worse than having the underdog in a 5-round women's MMA bout, you know, come out there and even in a loss, do well enough, especially if she has a takedown upside. So I'm picking Alexa Grasso to win the matchup, but it's a it's an interesting matchup for sure. And I mean, if you really want to build some lineups with the cheap Araujo, I'm not against that at all.
It's not a fight that I'm going to prioritize as a part
Okay.
of my DFS lineup construction. I mean, look, I'm going to get to it, but it's not a
Yeah.
fight that, I mean, I think for most weeks, the main event is a fight that you're going to target. It's just one of those weeks that may not be. Of course, we're sponsored by Prize Picks, and looking over at Prize Picks for the props over there. Alexa Grasso, the one that does stick out to me is the 97.5 significant strike number. Little, might be a little bit high, but if she can keep this fight on the feet and Araujo does not take the fight to the ground, I would probably slide going a little over that 97.5 there in terms of her. But, there are some numbers over there at Prize Picks that I do like we're going to get into as this is a week on Prize Picks. I want to attack the fight time. Plus, I got that free square going on for NBA opening night with Steph Curry. You got to take advantage of that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, the co-main event, I mentioned about it, Cub Swanson making his UFC bantamweight debut as he taking on Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez, he is 8,800. Cub Swanson is 7,400 over on DraftKings. And mentioned I was going through the Tapology page of Cub Swanson. The last time he fought bantamweight was back in very early part of his career, 2004, 2005. Cub Swanson has been up and down over the last 5 years since 2017. 4-5. He is coming off that first round TKO win versus Darren Elkins. For Jonathan Martinez, 1-3 in a row. All those wins have come by decision, and 7 of his 10 UFC fights have gone the distance. The one thing that stuck out to me, and I don't know if you saw this, media day was yesterday. Cub Swanson goes up there with one of his training partners, and his training partner answers the questions for him. I'm not sure how to take that, Pete. Is it a bad weight cut? Is it he just didn't want to do the media? Kind of just a very odd scene yesterday in Las Vegas.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I saw something, but I didn't have time to check on to watch it. But I mean, it's a weird situation in itself. You have Cub Swanson going down to a weight class that perhaps he should have been at all along. But I do not like these experiments later on in fighters' careers. Like I really do not. It's almost like grasping for straws. And it's not like he hasn't been successful. He's been decently successful. I mean, he's coming off a very nice knockout win over a very durable guy in Darren Elkins. So when you could put away a guy like that, it's like, all right, well, he's a true 45er. Now going to 35, I don't know how he's going to respond. And when I look at the matchups and I think about how Jonathan Martinez can kind of, pick up a victory over him, obviously you want to test a fighter to the chin when they're cutting a tremendous amount of weight, but you also want to test them to the body. And if I go back and I watch some fights, obviously the Giga Chikadze body kick to the ground and pound finish is something that sticks out to me, because when people are cutting a tremendous amount of weight, you are very vulnerable to the body. And I wonder, Jonathan Martinez being so kick heavy in his usual approach, I'm sure that's going to be part of the game plan. Now, on the complete flip side of this, had I not known this was at bantamweight and this was at 145 pounds, I think Cub Swanson is one of the biggest upside underdogs on the slate because of his knockout power. He can knock people out. He's very diverse. He has good throws. He's a submission liability as far as getting caught in submissions at times, but he does have a well-rounded skill set that can pose Jonathan Martinez problems, especially where Martinez has been chin checked and dropped numerous times throughout his fights. So like, I really like Cub Swanson, but I do not like the weight cut, if that makes sense. So I want to see how the weight cut goes. I want to see how he looks on the scales at face-offs, to really get a better read on this. Because if he looks terrible, I can really see a Jonathan Martinez body kick or knee up the middle, or just, a knockout where Cub Swanson at 100% health with a true proper weight cut would beat Jonathan Martinez all day long. So with all that being said, it's a tough matchup for me to necessarily feel good about either side. I'm going to like the Cub Swanson side until he gives me a reason not to, but be careful with this one for sure.
Marcos in chat mentioning Cub Swanson 3-0 versus Southpaws. It's a great stat to know about, but for me, the biggest thing for me is, what does Cub Swanson look like on the scale tomorrow? That's going to tell a lot. I mean, this is, I feel like a good amount of times we sit here on this show and there's always one or two fighters, and there's another fighter that we're going to talk about a little bit later. I want to see what he looks like on the scale. I want to see what he looks like on the scale before I kind of go all in on whether or not overall 38 years old, dropping down 135 pounds. I'll get a little bit there. I'll get a
Mm,
sprinkle of Cub Swanson, but I would venture to say, I mean, I haven't done any crunches yet. I would say I'll probably be in that 20 to 25% range on Cub Swanson, and primarily because of that knockout upside.
yeah, he has tremendous upside, and I do think I know firsthand. I say it all the time. Every time Cub Swanson fights, I was 22 years old and I sparred Cub Swanson, and I remember doing well in periods, but I also remember getting lit up in periods and getting tossed on my head numerous times. He's able to blend it so well. He is an aging veteran, but with his age comes wisdom and experience, and he's
Mhm.
fought legitimate, true competition. So, like, I'm going to be siding with Cub Swanson slightly until I look on the scales and say, all right, I'm off the Swanson bandwagon. So, this will be a tentative Cub Swanson pick.
Next up, we've got a flyweight matchup, big matchup here in the 125-pound division. Askar Askarov, 9,200 on DraftKings, taking on Brandon Royval, 7,000. By the way, the salaries have not come out on FanDuel. If they do come out during the show, we will mention those salaries. A big matchup. And both these guys, you talk about tough slates that both these guys have had since coming into the UFC. For Askar Askarov, Elliott, Kai Kara France, Bram Moreno, Alexander Pantoja, Bontarine, and Schnell. Excuse me, that is the for Royval. For Askar Askarov, Moreno, Elliott, Pantoja, Benavidez, France. So both these guys have fought the best of the best here at 125 pounds. Of course, Askar coming off that loss against Kai Kara France, first professional loss of his career. Gotta note that all of his fights have gone the distance. And when you think about Brandon Royval, has won back-to-back fights. But here's the one note I wrote about this fight, Pete. I want to get your thought on it. The takedown route for Askar Askarov in this matchup. He averages 2.6 takedown per 15 minutes of fighting, and Royval has a takedown defense of 39%.
Yeah, I like Askar Askarov a lot. I really do. Now, you have to always be careful when a fighter is experiencing a defeat. So you don't know how they're going to rebound. It's not always in a positive manner. And especially when somebody's undefeated or when they've had a very dominant career and now they're starting to, get met with resistance a little bit. With all that being said, I think that Askar Askarov is in one of the best spots on the slate. And despite being a slower paced fighter traditionally, and he's priced up at 9,200, I just see him having the answers for Brandon Royval throughout this contest. I really do. I think that the takedowns are going to be there. He needs to be wise of the submission skill set of Brandon Royval, and he has to be very careful. So if I'm coaching Askar Askarov, it's like, let's, do some upper body attacks. Let's limit the amount of times our neck is exposed for guillotine attempts because Royval can attempt a guillotine to basically transition into a scramble where he's threatening you with a multitude of submissions. So, like, from an underdog standpoint with tremendous upside, Royval is always dangerous. I just view Askarov's game to be strong enough to nullify anything that Brandon Royval does. And I actually think that the takedowns can come plentiful takedowns. I mean, he went 2 of 14 against Kai Kara France. If he attempts that same volume of takedowns, I'm expecting takedown city numbers. I really am. 5 of 6 against Joseph Benavidez, 2 of 15 against Alexandre Pantoja. So you can also say that he's inefficient with his takedowns, but I also think that comes because of the strengths of his opponents, right? Like I think that Benavidez, Kai Kara France, and Pantoja have better takedown defense than Brandon Royval. So like it's an Askar Askarov play for me on a volatile card. He is one of the most he is one of my most confident picks on the slate just because of where I view him within this weight class at 125 pounds.
3.5 takedowns landed is his prize picks prop.
So that's a tough one, right? Because like
Dude, that's a good number. Because like I could sit there and say I could see him land 4 takedowns, but man, I could also like what happens if he gets like 1 or 2 and he just finishes Royval on the ground.
yeah, that's my problem. That's what I was gonna say is like it may not even get to those numbers because like it could be one into ground and pound or a submission when Brandon Royval is getting a little desperate. I would think that if it goes 15 minutes that he smashes that number. It's just a matter of if the fight goes that long or not. So I would be it would be a sprinkle play for me. But as far as like DraftKings, I think that 9,200 is going to be a spot where a lot of people might not want to get for a flyweight division that isn't really known for finishes. But the high volume nature of the bout could actually elevate his score. So I like Askarov a lot at 9,200.
Before we move on to the fight that to me is a fight that we got to roster, we got to have both sides of the fight.
Oh,
do want to let you know about a great promo we got going on right over here at Stokastic.com, where you can try NFL Stokastic free for 3 days. This is for new users only. Get full access to everything NFL Stokastic has to offer. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup builder, top stacks tool. It is risk-free. Get it free for 3 days. Link is in the description below. Just click that link. This is for new users only. Great way to see the tools and data we have over here at Stokastic.com for NFL. And of course, we got all you covered for your UFC coverage as well. So be sure to hit that link for 3 free days of Stokastic NFL. This is for new users only. Great way, risk-free, to check out the tools we have here at Stokastic.com for this upcoming weekend slate of NFL action. Of course, so you got the NFL tonight with the prime game, and then of course on Sunday and on Monday, of course, I'll be up in Pittsburgh. Hey Pete, it's hoodie season. I can actually like kind of pack some like somewhat warm weather gear.
Yeah, it's been hoodie season up here, but
well,
yeah,
bro,
I mean,
dude, I wake up, I'll go outside about 7 o'clock in the morning to get in the car to go to the office. It's like 65 degrees.
you are
Feels
such
really
a baby.
good.
It is ridiculous. Like up here, we're probably in tank tops in 65.
Bro,
like,
you come live here in Florida for about 6 months. Let's see how quick you change.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, maybe I would. I don't think I would.
But then by noon, it's like 85 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't
Jason
last
had to
in New
swim
England.
to get to this show, Pete, and you had the audacity to call him a baby.
Yeah, well, that is true. That is to each their own, and he has his own battles living in Florida. But I would love to see Jason last 1 month in Connecticut. 1 month.
Why? Why would I do that?
No, we'll see. We'll see if you can do it. I know I can handle Florida, no problem at all.
Of course you could. You would be Florida man within like 2 weeks.
Trust me, I love Florida, so that would be a sneaky win for me.
You know what the one thing I don't have to buy?
A
Snow shovel.
Yeah.
Snow plow. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, watch. You guys are going to get hit with 2 winter storms this winter just because you said that. Mark it down right here. October 13th at 1:20. Jason's going to have 2 snowstorms in Florida this year just because he wants to be funny.
Yeah, the world's ending, okay? Thanks, Pete. Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah, literally. If it is snowing in Tampa this year, the world is clearly coming to an end.
Over half a snowstorm. I'm saying over. Just because of Jason.
Under.
Oh,
It has never snowed here all my life. I'm 41 years old. It has never snowed here.
First time for everything, and it's going to happen now.
First time for everything? What, you going for a submission in a fight?
Hey, hold on. I actually pause real quick. I actually have a record fastest submission in Bellator's featherweight history at 37 seconds.
We also know that's not exactly your go-to.
Yeah. Okay. But exactly. So
the last recorded snow day in Tampa, Florida was January 19th, 1977, Pete. So I'm going to say the under's heavily juiced.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. With that, there's 2 ways to look at it. It sounds like you're due. So get your snow shovel, buddy.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that.
Okay.
So that's things I don't worry about.
Yeah.
Now, what I do worry about is how much Jordan Wright I really want to have in my lineups at 7,500, taking on Dusko Todorovic. I mean, look, Jordan Wright, I haven't even looked at what the under 1.5 rounds in. It has to be juiced to the gills. Jordan Wright's never seen a 3rd round in his life. He's only seen the 2nd round twice. Both of these guys 1 and 3 in their last 4. So we can see what's happening here. The loser is going to get cut from the UFC. Jordan Wright does have a 30-inch reach advantage. I mean, look, you're not going to feel good rostering either one of these guys. But like, if you tell me I was going to go 60-40 one way or the other, if I sit there and say I'm rostering one of these guys in every single one of my lineups and I'm going 60-40, the 60 would be Dusko. But while we both do not love Jordan Wright, and a lot of that has to do with what we see in the UFC and what we saw prior to the UFC, the guy's a finisher. Like, he's a guy that has to be in your player pool.
Yeah, so like this is a fight that's going to make or break a lot of lineups. If you avoided this fight, you could avoid having half of your lineups being a mess. So that is one way to get leverage on the field is instead of, let's say in 150 max, if people did a 50-50 split, instead of them having only 75 active lines, if you just kind of pivoted to a different matchup where you felt more comfortable, that's one way to get different. But for me, I'm going to try to hit the correct side of this fight. And if I am over aggressive on the correct side of this fight, it could actually work out really well for me because of how early I think that this fight is going to end. Now, with that being said, I could be left with 150 lineups with single digit performers. And that's a risk that I'm willing to take. I am picking Dusko Todorovic. Now, he is a defensive liability, and his hands do not come back to his face at all. He's coming off a brutal knockout defeat to Chidi Njokuani, where that elbow completely sent him to the shadow realm. Prior to that, he's always been a guy that has offensive skills, very good with his boxing, very good with his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu, top heavy ground and pound. It's just a matter of getting to that point before he gets KO'd. And if you give Jordan Wright an opening, he does have the offensive striking skills to put you away. But I've seen more red flags from Jordan Wright throughout his career, from the Contender Series to even in the UFC, when it comes to submission defense, when it comes to absorbing a shot, than I have from Dusko Todorovic. And I don't think I've picked Jordan Wright once in his entire UFC career. I just don't think I have. And if I did, maybe it was against Jamie Pickett. I don't think I did that. But I will tell you that I think that Dusko actually has a ceiling in the UFC if he refines some technical flaws, whereas Jordan Wright looks like the most inconsistent from minute to minute fighter that is in the UFC. So it's going to be a Dusko Todorovic heavy lean, but I can understand the hesitance with this matchup where you're like, I don't trust either. I'm doing 60-40 split, and I think that's going to be the common build for people. So I'm going to try to get away from the chalk percentages when it comes to exposure, and I'm just going to go heavy on one side, and it's going to be Dusko, and I'll close my eyes.
Under 1.5, -220.
Yeah, it's value. There's value on that.
Yeah, and Dusko on Prize Picks, it is 4.5. Little teaser. That's one of the two plays I'm going to give you on Prize Picks this week.
Yeah,
I like the
I
under
like
there.
That. Yeah, I mean, good picks.
Like, how do you go over that situation? I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, if you go over, you are just always against the grain, and yeah, you are just, I don't know. You got to be careful. I don't know. I don't really see how. Now, I did read something or saw something where Dusko mentioned that his head coach will finally be a part of his corner for the first time in his UFC career or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. And that's an interesting wrinkle, right? Like if he's been fighting without his head coach due to visa issues or whatever, perhaps he could go out there a little smarter, fight a little bit more intelligent, and piece everything together, because I do think that if he takes Jordan Wright to the mat, it's going to be a quick night.
Did you hear who allegedly is going to be in Islam Makhachev's corner next Saturday?
No, I did not.
Hasbulla.
Come on, guys. What are we doing here?
I'm hoping that his management is just playing a joke on everyone.
I mean, I don't know. As long as you have Khabib, really, who cares? I mean, we have seen people do stupid stunts like this. You had Joaquin Buckley bring the self-defense guy.
Why are you hating on him? Why are you hating on
I would rather Hasbulla than the self-defense man. I'll tell you that.
I think we need to bring him to Rogers Mixed Martial Arts Academy for a seminar.
No problem. Bring him by.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter yesterday. I'm like, this can't be real. And then I saw like literally his manager said he's a yes. I was like, oh my God, please be. I hope that's wrong, but yeah,
we're
starting to
have
Habib and Javier. Yeah,
right.
Habib and Javier Mendez is obviously the big ones in terms of that corner. By the way, another note on that fight. I talked about this on a podcast last night. Have you been on MMA IG over the last 24 hours?
I have been really slammed and kind of everywhere. So please fill me in. I might have missed it.
Charles Oliveira, great fighter.
Oh yeah, why is he with lions and tigers and bears? Oh my, what the hell is he doing?
For people who do not see this, he is walking a lion on a leash.
Who's letting him do this?
Who
2
is
weeks
putting
before
a
his fight.
leash on a lion?
I would
Dude,
have
Pete,
put
Pete, if I go to Connecticut and you're like, hey, Jay, let's go on an excursion today, man. And then you take me to some zoo and like, hey, man, you're going to walk this lion on a leash. I go, oh, hell, I'm not.
Oh, really? See, I would do it, but I don't know if I would do it 2 weeks before my title fight. Like that, I think timing's everything. Like, yeah, you got to live, Jay. You got to like, what's the worst thing? Just throw somebody else in front of you, and then you're fine. But outside of that,
Tyler's got up on the screen. Like, bro, do you got a death wish? You want to walk a lion? This ain't walking a dog, bro.
yeah. But I mean, some dogs. You see how that thing's walking? It's actually walking. I know a lot of people who can't even have their dogs walk that well on a leash. So, I mean, is Tyler one of them? I mean, maybe he gets dragged down the street. He skins his knee every time he takes his dog for a walk.
Dude,
but
how does that conversation start though?
That's called when you have just stupid money. You do stupid things like that. Like people buy wild exotic animals. People do really stupid things. I'm surprised the UFC didn't put a halt to that, if I'm being honest. Like, this is a fight that they've wanted for a very long time. Had they known it, I think they would have put a halt to it. But I think this is kind of done, without the UFC's permission.
That's crazy. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, what is going on here? What world am I living in?
I'm watching the line right now. That's awesome.
Dude, yeah. Let's move over to the next matchup. We got Misha Cirkunov taking on Alonzo Menifield. Alonzo Menifield, he's 8,900, 7,300 for Misha Cirkunov. Cirkunov returning to 205 pounds after his last two fights. We're at 185 pounds. He's lost 3 in a row, 2-6 in his last 8 fights. Menifield 3-1 in his last 4 fights. The one loss coming against William Knight is coming off a first round victory. 4 of his 5 UFC wins have come in the first round. But this is a fight that, if you're looking at the underdog, Pete, the mindset's got to be Cirkunov is going to attempt to take Menifield to take down City.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to. The issue is bouncing between weight classes is something I do not like. When you are so unsure that you're blaming performances based on, your weight, whether it's, the weight of your opponents or how you feel at certain weights, whether you're too small, too fast, too slow, or not strong enough. It's kind of like a cop-out. And I do think that there is some merit to what Misha's concerned about. The issue is you can't take a shot at this heavyweight class. And you're going up against a guy in Alonzo Menifield who hits really, really hard. Now, with all that being said, is if he's able to absorb a shot or not get hit, I think that he is the better mixed martial artist. If you really want to like put all the boxes out there, I think that Misha actually checks more boxes than Alonzo Menifield when it comes to if it hits the mat. His submission skills are second to none. Like, he's really, really good. And we also think that Alonzo Menifield has a questionable gas tank. I don't think that Alonzo Menifield's win was all that impressive over Askar Mozharov. It's kind of what should have happened. That guy should not have ever been in the UFC. So like, if I'm not going to be a Jordan Wright backer, which other underdogs am I going to have exposure to? Like, and that's me personally. I'm recommending everybody else to get to some Jordan Wright. But for me personally, if I'm not getting to Jordan Wright, there goes one of the best underdogs with upside at 7,500. I think the $200 savings to Misha Cirkunov has some upside as well, especially if this hits the mat. I don't think it'll be close. I really do not. My issue is him just getting knocked out in horrific fashion, similar to how he has in a lot of his losses. So it'll be a lean towards Misha Cirkunov just because of my lineup construction. But this is another fight that I will create a group on and don't care who I get to. I have questions about Menifield. I have questions about Cirkunov. Not sure if you feel the same about this fight, but I do think that it's going to be, have a ton of GPP implications.
My concern on the Menifield aspect, and I do like him to win this because I really have a lot of questions about Misha being able to take the power at 205 pounds, particularly after being at 185, now back 205. You go back to his previous 205-pound fights, there was a lot of struggles that were going on. They were taking the power that was coming from these 205-pound fighters. But a concern I would have for Menifield is what happens if Cirkunov can drag him into deep waters. Can,
Yep.
maybe he's not able to get the takedowns early on in the fight, but he's able to make this a clinch type fight against the fence, wear down Alonzo Menifield. That would be my concern for Menifield. Like in terms of a massive GPP, I want to take some shots on Cirkunov just because of the GPP upside. But if you tell me I got a roster, I'm one lineup and I got to roster one guy out of this lineup, I'd rather go the Menifield route than the Cirkunov route.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that analysis and assessment. If you kind of look back at Alonzo Menifield's career, you can see where a William Knight loss and a Devin Clark loss, where that kind of wall install against the cage did occur. He's losing minutes in a situation like that. Every minute that ticks off, he is less and less dangerous. One of the best first round players on this entire slate, if you're being honest, because he has tremendous power. But over the course of 15 minutes, I do think that it's Cirkunov's, the longer the fight goes. So be careful with the fight.
Sean V notes in the chat, he goes, I went to Arnold Schwarzenegger's house for a Christmas party in 2018. He had all kinds of animals there. We were all holding up the alligator. No big lions, though, but just a baby mountain lion.
I haven't messed around with some wild animals like that. Like I haven't held anything crazy. I don't deal with snakes.
Nope. I left parties in college. They'd be like, "Oh, we got a snake." I'd be like, "Oh, okay." I'd leave. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd rather walk the mountain lion or rather walk the lion. I'm not even holding a snake at all. Not a chance. See you later.
When I was in New Orleans a couple weeks ago on Bourbon Street, there was like 3 or 4 people with snakes around their shoulders.
Get away from me, dude.
Nope, get away. No.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I don't mess with snakes, man. Some people are all about it. I am the opposite. I'm not going to harm a snake. I just don't want to deal with it. Yeah, it's cool. See you later. I'll deal with the monkeys, the alligators, the lions, hell, anything, spiders, even over the snake.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. Of course, this is the MMA DFS Strategy Show. We're getting ready for UFC Vegas number 62, and we are sponsored by Prize Picks. Go ahead, check out all their daily prop contests they have over at prizepicks.com. Of course, you can download their app in the App Store and click the link in the description below to get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to a $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with Prize Picks. They got a free square for opening night of the NBA with Steph Curry, so you got to do that. Of course, you do the multi-sport cross entries. And looking over at this MMA slate on Saturday, the two that really stuck out to me is in the fight times. Alonzo Menifield, his fight time number is 6.5. Pete, I like the under there, and I already mentioned I like the under on Dusko at 4.5.
So I definitely agree with you with the Dusko number. The Menifield one's interesting if the wall install does occur. It comes down to how likely you think that happens. If you think it's less than a 30% chance, then I say target that number. If you think that a wall install is kind of like a 50-50 shot, then I would avoid it. But mostly Menifield, Cirkunov ends inside rounds 1.5. So it's a good line.
No doubt about it. Be sure to check out Prize Picks, the sponsor of this show. You can download their app in the App Store. And of course, I mentioned about that great offer we have there. Just check the description below to take advantage of that offer. Next up, we got Mana Martinez taking on Brandon Davis. Brandon Davis, he's 7,700. Mana Martinez, 8,500. Mana Martinez, 1-1 in the UFC. Both those fights did go to the decision, split decision win against Guido Canetti, and then had that unanimous decision loss to Ronnie Lawrence, where he was down 2-0. And James Krause just fires him up and basically tells him, go knock this dude out. He dropped him 2 times in that 3rd round, but unable to get the win. Prior to entering the UFC, 8 of his wins had come via finish. For Brandon Davis, returned to the UFC last year, did not look good in that fight against where he got the loss there, and this is his first fight in 1 year. He's 2-6 in the UFC. When he left the UFC the first time, the best way I could put it, he took on journeyman on the regional scene. Yep. This is a fight that, I just don't feel good either way.
Yeah, I don't feel good either way. I will kind of throw out there that, Mana Martinez was my ultimate dart throw the last time he was fighting against Ronnie Lawrence to kind of test that chin. And he looked terrible in rounds 1 and 2, but in rounds 3, it came to fruition a little bit, and he started to test Ronnie Lawrence and land those big, heavy shots. And stylistically, that was a very, very difficult fight for him because you're having to defend the takedown and you're not on your feet, able to show off your skills. in your dominant area of the fight. And now I do think that a fight against Brandon Davis is more along the lines stylistically of where he, the coach would be like, all right, cool, this is a better fight for us. Brandon Davis could mix in some takedowns though. That is an ace up his sleeve. He has done it in the past. Traditionally a very, very hard worker in the gym. So he has a good gas tank. Against Giga Chikadze, he attempted 7 takedowns and he landed 3 of them. I do think that Mana has better takedown defense than Giga. Giga has improved. So that might be a hot take, but I will say that Mana Martinez, this should be a striking matchup for as long as it lasts. And I don't know how Brandon Davis is going to respond to getting knocked out in such vicious fashion against Dana Bakary. So it's like, who do I feel more comfortable about? Traditionally, I'll be leaning underdogs a lot, but for this matchup, the mid 8,000 something that's always kind of glossed over and forgotten. And I think that Mana Martinez might fit that bill and might be one of those guys. He did get knocked down several times against Ronnie Lawrence as well. So it's like, this could be a knockdown fest where they just start swinging and banging, and somebody's going to hit the mat. But I think like from everything regionally that we learned about Mana Martinez, all our expectations were that he's a dangerous striker and he flatlines people. So give me Mana Martinez at 8,500 in a favorable stylistic matchup that could be high paced. I'm still going to get the Brandon Davis, probably about 20% of my lineups. And that's how I'm going to go about this slate, is mixing and matching these underdogs, especially for ones that I have I want to have some exposure to, because I can see them spoiling it for us. But as far as like the pick, I am picking Mana Martinez at 8,500.
Next up, we got a match between Rafael Sunsao and Victor Henry. Victor Henry, 9,300. 6,900 for Rafael Sunsao. Sunsao has lost 4 in a row, all against killers. Murray, Sandhagen, Garbrandt, and Simone. He was finished in 3 of those 4 fights. His last win came back in 2018 versus Rob Font. For Victor Henry, came into the UFC at the beginning of this year, and he was almost a 4-1 betting underdog against Hani Barcelos. Goes out there and gets the win. He, in that 3-round decision, Pete, he landed 222 total strikes. Now, he did absorb 134. So, like, if you go to UFCstats.com and you see that strikes land per minute of 12.07 for Victor Henry, that is why that number is so high.
Yeah, I mean, but like, Hani Barcelos presses you backwards, and he's constantly pressing forward and throwing combinations. And, you saw how good Hani Barcelos looked his last time out. So, this is a good win. Victor Henry got a good win over Hani Barcelos, and he landed 181 significant strikes. He threw 352 significant strikes. So like, the volume is ridiculous. Hani was kind of not expecting somebody to be able to match his volume, his pace, his aggressiveness. And guess what? Victor Henry is so well-rounded that he can do such. He is a fantastic submission artist as well. Good defensive grappler, good offensive grappler, very good striker. And I think the pace and the pressure of him against Rafael Sunsao is why this is priced accordingly at 9,300 versus 6,900. MMA is a ruthless sport, and we remember what people have done so much throughout their career. And it's hard to kind of not have a biased opinion when you see a former title challenger and a guy who was a staple within the division and Rafael Sunsao now be falling short in some of the matchups. And you're like, I think he's going to pick up a win one of these times. And it's like, yeah, it's been tough sledding. It really has been tough sledding, and it's an unforgiving sport. And when it's gone, it's gone. So I actually think that Victor Henry is the A side here. Clearly, picking him to win against Rafael Sunsao. If you think that it was a fluke against Hani Barcelos, by all means, target some Rafael Sunsao 6,000 dart throws. But I think that Victor Henry is the real deal, and I think he's going to be a tough out for a lot of fighters.
You know who might be knocking on a Sunsao's door right now, right?
Father Time.
Exactly.
Ooh. Yeah.
Father Time, I think, is on the other side of that door.
Yeah, I think so too, buddy.
Yeah, to me, it's a Victor Henry. It's just a matter of whether you want to get there or not. The next matchup, you got Nick Maximov taking on Jacob Malkoun. 8,300 for Nick Maximov, 7,900 for Jacob Malkoun. For Maximov, 2-1 in the UFC, coming off that loss against Petrosky. Malkoun, 2-2 in the UFC, is coming. Both those wins have come via decision. His last 3 fights have gone the distance. Here's my question for you, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the better striker?
That's a good one. It's a good question. And it's something I've been kind of going back and forth on all week. And prior to, digging in, I'm a Jacob Malkoun guy. I really am. I like Nick Maximov a lot, but what was shown against Andre Petrosky is that he is, susceptible to getting choked out as well. I mean, that was a hell of a choke that Petrosky put on him, and kind of his specialty. And if you don't respect your opponent's skill set, then you can fall victim to it at any point. And Jacob Malkoun looked like he was not going to have a UFC career when he got starched against Phil Hawes. But guess what? He has put together 3 impressive performances. And I know that he lost to Brennan Allen, but I scored that as a win. I truthfully did. He landed a tremendous amount of takedowns, 7 of 14, 6 of 16 against AJ Dobson, and 8 of 24 against Abdul Razak Al Hassan. I don't understand how this guy has such a high pace within his fights. It is really, really impressive. Very few times have I ever sat there and been impressed to the fact of like somebody putting on such a pace where it's like, that's hard. Maybe casuals won't recognize how difficult that is, but as a hardcore fan, a fighter, a trainer, what he does is kind of like the Colby Covington. But guess what? Nick Maximov has done the same thing too. So I'm interested to see who's the better grappler here. He's landed 11 of 16 takedown attempts against Punahele Soriano, 4 of 15 against Cody Brundage. Different stylistic standpoints. Maximov more of a wrestler, and you have Malkoun more of as a grappler with unconventional takedowns. I think Malkoun has the better striking. I do. And usually when 2 grapplers get together, it turns into a striking matchup because their grappling negates each other. I think we are going to see them land takedowns, and it's going to come down to cardio. And it's going to come down to top position. So I am picking the underdog in Jacob Malkoun. And if you made a strong case for Nick Maximov, I really wouldn't, fault you there. But I'm a Malkoun guy, and I really think that working with Whitaker a lot is going to help him be prepared. And I just think that he's fought some tough competition as well. So give me Malkoun at 7,900.
I'm with you on that one there. Next up, we got Joe Anderson Brito, 9,400, taking on Lucas Alexander at 6,800. Brito 1-1 in the UFC. Lost his debut against Bill Algeo, then that 41-second knockout against Andre Fili. And Alexander, he has won 5 in a row, but when you do a little bit of a deep diving in that Tapology, there was something that stuck out to me, Pete. Lucas Alexander's had struggle making 145 pounds. So This is a second fighter in this card that I want. I do like Joe Anderson Brito. I love his style, love the forward pace that he has, but I do want to see if Lucas Alexander makes weight tomorrow.
What do you think the salaries are going to be for this?
9,400 and 6,800 is the salaries.
Oh, they're out. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the Cruncher right now. All right, perfect. That's kind of where I was going to say. I was going to say 9,500 for Brito. All right, cool. I like Brito. I don't know how else to say it. You hit on the weight concerns about Lucas Alexander, but I think that Brito is a hard fighter to go up against for a lot of people, and we have seen his skills from the striking, the grappling. Bill Algeo is a tough guy, and if you don't put him away, then he's going to spoil the party. So I think that Joe Anderson Brito is going to have some of the best finishing potential on the slate. I just really do. He hits really hard. He has so many ways to win. He was preparing for a fighter that had a full camp. Now you have a fighter on a short camp. Give me Brito. I'm going to have a tremendous amount of him for the slate. Obviously, I'll be keeping my eyes on the weigh-ins, as you mentioned, but it's hard for me not to think that Brito gets this done inside 2 rounds.
Next up, you got a female match between Rodriguez and Hughes. 8,600 for Rodriguez, 7,600 for Hughes. Rodriguez won her UFC debut with decision win over Kay Hansen. 3 of her last 4 wins have come by decision for Hughes. She's won back-to-back fights after she started 0-3 in the UFC. And in those wins, she was really able to go the grappling route. I just don't think she can do in this fight. I think this is a Rodriguez or pass situation.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do with this fight, if I'm being honest. And I have no I have no problem telling you guys when I'm struggling with a fight, and I am struggling with this fight because Sam Hughes kind of has that Jordan Wright about her. I just don't want to back her. I just don't. And maybe in certain matchups, I'm pretty sure I was picking Elise. No, who did I pick? Estela Nunes to beat Sam Hughes. And it looked good until it didn't. And it just goes to show you that MMA is crazy. If you do not get your opponent out of there, and you have a poor gas tank, you can see the momentum change, and you can see where, you have Sam Hughes starting to come from behind because she's always in good shape. Could that happen here against Piera Rodriguez? Sure. Do I think that the winner of this fight scores well? No, I really don't. This could be one of the biggest leverage spots on the slate, especially from an ownership standpoint of people kind of just, I don't want to put this fight in my builds. That's kind of how I'm going to have the, that's the dilemma I'm going to have when I'm constructing lineups. It's like, I'll get to it, but I'm not going to feel good about it. So Piera Rodriguez, 8,600 is going to be the pick for me. Again, you could do worse than a Sam Hughes coming from behind, because since she's made the switch to Fortis, she has looked significantly better, and perhaps we haven't seen the ceiling. When she gets in top position and she lands takedowns, man, she's a hell of a fighter. It's just, does she really have a third victory in a row? I don't know. I'm going to say no. So Piera Rodriguez is the play, but I hate the fight.
I'm with you there. Next up, flyweight matchup between Tahara and Vegara. Tahara 9,100, 7,100 for Vegara. Tahara won his UFC debut via decision against Carlos Candelario. 8 of his 11 wins have come via finish. Of course, on the other side, Vegara 1-1 in the UFC. Had that loss to Ode Osborne and coming off that win against Rodriguez.
Yeah, so I really like Tatsuro Taira here. I think for the division, his grappling, we really haven't even seen the best of it yet. And when he beat Carlos, it was impressive, but I still don't think it was as impressive as what his actual ceiling is. This is a guy that can traditionally lands a ton of takedowns, went 1 of 5 in the takedown department, landed a knockdown, had 2 reversals, 3 submission attempts. So that tells me he's fighting for the finish. And when I watch his tape, his regional tape, he lands a lot of good trips and takedowns and upper body throws. And I like what he brings to the table, especially for the division. When you have a guy who is skilled in CJ Vergara, he could work his way back to the feet, which could lead to more takedowns. I mean, he stuffed 6 takedowns against Ode Osborne, 5 takedowns against Clayton Rodriguez. I don't think either one of those fighters are on the grappling caliber that Tatsuro Taira is. So 9,100 is going to be the play for me. Tatsuro Taira, very, very, this fighter needs to have an asterisk on the card, because I think in a year's time, 2 years' time, we could be talking about a guy fighting in the top 10. I like him. I don't think that he's a fraud, where a lot of international talent sometimes is against the talents inside the UFC. I actually think that he's legit. So Tatsuro Taira, 9,100 is the play.
Opening fight of the night, Mike Rodriguez, 6,700, taking on Pete Rodriguez, 9,500. Pete, here's all I got to say on this one. Friends don't let friends roster Mike Jackson.
I guess we're not friends, because I'm doing it. And I am doing it. I'm telling you why I'm doing it. Okay, listen. And the reason I'm doing it is because I just don't trust the price point on Pete Rodriguez. I just don't. Like -700, -800. Okay, this guy's never really been in round 2 ever. He looked terrible against Jack Della Maddalena, and I think Jack Della Maddalena is one of my favorite prospects ever. I really love Jack Della. But what I'm saying is, fighting is crazy, and if you've never been in rounds 2 or 3, you don't know how you're going to respond. And even a guy, like, I've seen the worst fighters ever win rounds against amazing fighters, just because the amazing fighter's tired, just because the amazing fighter has not experienced certain situations in a fight. So, like, yeah, I'm sprinkling Mike Jackson in here just because I don't think that 9,500 should be the price point. Pete Rodriguez has some of the best round 1 odds based on how he fights. So he's probably, next to Alonzo Menafield, one of the best fighters out there to go out there. And if he wins, it's in round 1. What happens if he doesn't? I'm just saying Mike Jackson does box a lot, and straight punches were a significant issue for Pete Rodriguez against Jack Della Maddalena. He was getting hit. His head was popping back like a Pez dispenser. So, like, Rodriguez should win this fight all day long, and if he does it, he's gone. I think both fighters might be gone regardless. So I'm sprinkling Mike Jackson in there. I'm going to look at ownership. If it's single digit, I am definitely doubling it, just because the odds are all ridiculous. But if Pete Rodriguez loses this fight, then he does not belong in the UFC.
Look, I think Pete Rodriguez is put in the situation to get rid of Mike Jackson in the UFC. That's the way.
So was some other fighters too, like Dean Barry. That was ugly. Like, even up until the fouls, like Dean Barry, he was there. He didn't get rid of him. So it's like, I'm in agreement with you. I think they want to get rid of Mike Jackson. I think that they could have done it a lot worse. But
hey, if
I don't
Mike
know.
Jackson was a 185er, you know they would just give Bo Nickel to him and just say, Bo, just go
That's a
get rid of
perfect,
this.
perfect. That's what I'm saying. Like that's a perfect. That's what should have happened. Something like that. Like,
Find one of these guys.
what
like
happens
Contender
if he beats
Series,
Pete Rodriguez? You know what I mean? Like, what happens? It's like now he's around again. Come on.
Now he's probably got a new 4-fight deal.
That's what I'm saying. Just like get this guy out of here.
Yeah.
You know, he has good straight punches. That's all I can say about Mike Jackson. He's not a good fighter. It's just that like minus 800. That's crazy to me. Dean Barry was like minus 1,000. Like that's crazy to me. You know what I mean? Like it's fighting. Anything can happen.
Yeah. As we get into our straight up fight picks, I'm just going to tell you, I'm chalk city for the most part.
Okay.
So main event, I got Grasso.
Grasso.
Co-main event, Martinez.
I'm gonna go Cub.
I'll go Askarov.
Askarov.
Dusko.
I'm gonna go Dusko.
Benefield.
Yeah, for the picks, I'll say Menafield.
Mana.
Henry.
Malkoon. Brito. Rodriguez. Tara.
Yep, Tyra.
And Rodriguez.
Yeah, I have to pick Rodriguez as far as that. It's a GPP play for Mike Jackson. It's nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the only question of that fight is whether or not it ends up being optimal. Samuel, appreciate you in the super chat. We're going to end the show here on this one. Of course, coming up next is the NHL Strategy Show. And of course, we got you covered for tonight's NFL slate here on Stokastic.com. Top 2 cash.
Brito and I'm going to go Henry.
That's where I was going to go exactly there. GPPs, top 2 GPPs.
The right fight and it's the right fight against Todorovic.
Agreed.
And then it's the Menafield against Serkinov.
We're right on the same page. Is that what I was thinking there too? Underdogs. I mean, like looking at underdogs from a GPP upside, the ones that stick out to me, Pete, Cub Swanson, Jordan Wright, Misha Serkinov.
Agree with you. Even if I don't agree with some of the picks, like that's where I think the ceiling lies when it comes to underdogs.
Favorite inside the distance. Not to sound like a broken record here. Wright Todorovic, Serkinov, Menafield, Brito, Alexander, Jackson.
Yeah, I like
Rodriguez.
Brito a lot. Yeah, Brito seems like a free square this week.
Top dart.
Dart.
If I was going to say under 7,400, man, under 7,400 would be tough. I mean, I from the grappling side, I do like Jacob Malkoon, but he's like 7,900. If I was going to go under 76, Benefield, all right, Serkinov, excuse me.
Yeah, agree with you.
Optimal plays, Benefield, Serkinov, Wright, Dusko. I'm pretty sure you agree with that.
Agreed. I like Tyra a lot.
And his over under 7.5.
I'm going to say under. It's a good number.
It's a good number. I would go under as well. He goes Pete with that baby showdown takedowns. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I saw Bree was in the gym on the IG stories.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. So I've been winning these showdowns for NFL and these NFL slates and whatnot. So yeah, helping out for all the baby bills coming. So I'm excited.
Kudos. Always love seeing those winning screenshots. Of course, be sure to send us. Me and Pete will be back here on Saturday afternoon for Live Before Lock, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Pete, that's just a little bit of nose, so you know exactly what time we're on. And of course, coming up next is the NHL Strategy Show to get you ready for tonight's NHL slate. Appreciate everyone tuning in for the show, and we look forward to talking to you on Saturday for Live Before Lock. Have a good afternoon, everybody.